something that I feel like no one realizes is like when you're designing shoes and you get something and then uh like the next day there's like a sketch on your desk where someone has sketched over it and said, "We're doing this now." And I'm just like,
Yeah.
who is that? Like, what do they think? You don't sketch over my stuff. This is my sketch. Like, no way.
Yeah.
Like,
I think there's an appropriate way to to give feedback or critique. Like if you really feel, you can take the page out of E. Scott's book. He always does the would you consider? Um, would you consider, and then then doing the sketch over.
okay. Welcome everybody to another episode of Tech Packs Are Due. I am Jake Bergini, senior footwear designer. Somehow I got that title. Oh, every time I say it. But here I am, designer, and yeah, today we're back. We got Caulin back on the podcast again. He is good enough to have back, and so
People liked it enough. We're not in the
he is
doily
great.
beach house now, so we're
Yeah. It's great. Um, and so yeah, we're back to kind of review stuff, review the last two episodes. Colin is an avid listener, and so
long time
we
listener, first time caller.
yeah, so he's doing all that. He's doing the heavy lifting for everybody, and he's got thoughts, and I like his thoughts. So we'll have a show on Colin's review of the episodes I've had. So yeah, we're gonna kind of go at that a little bit. First, I think we need to start off with a segment called "Things That We Like," or like because we're all on Instagram, we're always scrolling and stuff, and so we see shoes all the time that we find interesting, and then we talk about them amongst ourselves. Even in the footwear world, I think we all send messages to each other and like, "Yo, check this out." And so this is kind of be a live version of that. Whatever. Uh, but yeah, Colin has one. I don't have anything this week, but we will. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But I'm hyped about some things, but yeah, we can just see how this one goes and see if it's a segment we want to
A
keep on.
reoccurring segment.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
who
mean, I just wanted to say Nike's coming out with the Pegasus Premium, which I think they kind of they did like a reveal thing before the Olympics this year
yep,
when they launched the
teased it.
new Peg 41. But it looks sweet. I love Zoom. Zoom is like the best airbag technology ever.
Right.
And it gives me a lot of vibes of, I don't know if you remember the Air Zoom All Out, which was basically like the exact same thing. It was like a Pegasus with Zoom, like a huge Zoom unit on the bottom, and it had like
Oh
a
yeah.
Flyknit collar. Um, it was super comfortable, extremely unstable.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
trying it on. I was in New York at the time, and I tried them on in the Soho like Nike Town store,
Yeah.
and I remember feeling like, oh man, I'm gonna definitely roll my ankles if I tried to run
Yeah.
in these. But I'm interested to see like how that interaction is because the Pegasus Premium has Zoom X and also Zoom, like a giant Zoom bag in the
Right.
middle.
Right.
Um, and I don't know that it's we could. This is maybe like a topic for another episode, but I would love
Yeah.
to talk about like the rise and fall of Nike running shoes because really it's just the racing shoes that are like kind of kind of like
Yep.
towing all of the weight right now. Like the
Yep.
training shoes, the daily trainers, the max cushion trainers are just not up to par with what's on the market right now.
Right.
So it's interesting to see Nike like put out this thing that looks very aesthetically pleasing and seems like it would be super duper comfortable, but I think it's very lifestyle. It's very.
Yeah.
I think it would be very like athleisure almost.
Yep. I
Like I guess I could see the Lululemon moms wearing the Pegasus Premium.
Yep. Shout out to them. uh, Lululemon moms out there. The airbag is interesting, like how it's contoured.
Yeah,
Something about the upper, I'm like, that looks. Does it look old? But it's like
it
the
does look a little
materials.
basic, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's. I don't know. Like it looks like something I've seen before from them. And I don't
Mm.
have the encyclopedia of Nike like memorized. I feel like you have like everything, like
I
all the
just
Nike
remember what I
shoes.
like.
Yeah, like logged away. I'm like, you're like, what was the shoe you just said? The Nike
The Zoom All Out is what it was
Zoom
called.
All Out.
Yeah.
Gosh,
It was like 2016, 2016, 2015 when that
what a
shoe had come
name!
out.
what,
It was a kind of
what a
an
name!
ugly shoe, honestly. It was
Man,
people
no.
loved it. It was just really comfy.
Oh, my phone's the camera, or I'd look it up.
Let me see here.
Like, but
I'll put it up to the screen. Um,
the Zoom All Out.
it's a pretty.
How could we forget the Zoom All Out? Like,
You got to zoom all the way out to
yeah,
see it. You know.
the Zoom All Out. Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
So like kind of basic, like flying it upper, but then just a gigantic zoom unit. It's bottom loaded,
Right.
but it gives me the same vibes as this. Only it has it's sandwiched in between two pieces of foam, so it'll be interesting because these ones felt super unstable, even though the stack is really low. Like look how low the
Right.
stack is on that.
Do
Um,
you think it's like do you think it was like their bottom nuts are always weird, like the heel can be really narrow and like the
mm,
midfoot's always narrow, and then
yeah, that's true.
because they try to be really sleek with their stuff sometimes, and sometimes it pays off in the worst ways.
Right,
Um
like the Flyknit Racer. People
yeah.
love the Flyknit Racer, but that thing is like standing on stilts.
Yeah. Again, like yeah, I remember. Did I have it? I don't know. I had like the Flynet Lunar, one of the original ones.
Oh, the Lunar
But
Epic Flyknit, maybe.
no, 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 no. Before that,
Okay.
like where they were like doing,
Oh.
it was its own tongue. It didn't have like a knit-in tongue or anything. But
Oh, okay.
it was with the time when I thought like, oh man, knit is like really breathable. Like whoa,
Yeah.
like how
Yeah.
breathable is knit? And then and then Adidas came in with Flyknit or not Fly Prime Knit, and you're
Prime
like,
knit.
oh, so Flyknit so flat knitting's like a sweater, like a sweater for your feet. And
Yeah.
I was like, I remember thinking like, because I got to pencil. Dwayne was like, flat knitting is not breathable, and I was like, wait. I was like, isn't it though? Like, I just
I
had
was
the
like,
lunar
I was gonna say,
thing. I
I've got
swear.
these Nikes on my feet, and they're
Yeah,
they're totally fine. Like,
I was like, I swear, I got these at the outlet, and they were really good. But
breathability is like an interesting performance characteristic because it's like it could be achieved in so many different ways,
right,
and then also it's like it's not really breathability; it's like air permeability almost.
right, right.
So this is like how fast like sweat wicks away. And
Yep.
that also like has to do with your socks. Dwayne's just wearing gold toes. He's just wearing the wrong socks.
Right.
The
He's wearing like
Kirkland 10
wool.
pack.
Yeah.
He's wearing cotton socks.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is depending on like yeah, and then like I have a hard time wearing a thin sock. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So maybe just like feeling that like feeling any kind of airflow was like, oh yeah, like these are
Yeah.
good. Like
The thin
uh,
sock thing is interesting though too because I know that like there are dudes who like race like do like running and they're always like race day you have to wear like the super thin race day socks.
yeah.
And I always feel like my shoes don't fit as well.
Yep.
Maybe I'm just getting the
Yep.
wrong size. But like in training, right? You're training in like the mid cushion socks, with like the ankle
Yep.
compression or whatever. But yeah, every time I wear the thinner stuff, I always just feel like I'm slipping sliding around.
Do you think they do when? Because I feel the same way, and it makes me think like this is a dumb question for the footwear people of the world, but it's like, do you think the lasts are built to have socks?
Ooh, that's interesting. Do they have a sock allowance?
Because
That's
they
pretty
do
interesting.
allowances for
The Strobel,
like
right?
Strobel and footbed.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And I'm
That's
like,
interesting. That would be like a whole
because
nother level to last to have a sock allowance.
yeah, but like, why? I like. I mean, I know it's like like a little tiny bit, but
It makes a
I've never thought
difference.
about that because when I do put on like, maybe it's also the material. Like a lot of those socks, I don't know what the
Hmm.
heck those sport sock things are made out of, but like,
Yeah, they're
really feel
slippery.
slippery too.
Yeah, they
Like,
feel like they're gonna slide down. I bought some.
yeah,
There's like a local bike shop around here that like does their own apparel and stuff. It's actually like really popular. They had like a sample sale. I got some socks and I wore them to work the other day. They were slipping, sliding. I had like the old cartoons where like you have like a whole bunch of your sock hanging out at the
yeah,
end of the day. Like that's what I felt like. It's like they were just slipping, sliding off of my feet. No wonder they were samples. I guess.
yeah, man,
We'll get a. I
huh.
actually have Tom Iredale from Jones and Vining. I have his contact info. We'll get him on the pod. We'll talk to him about
Just
lasts.
be like, hey man,
Let's talk about
socks.
lasts and let's see like
So-
are we putting sock allowance in there? New innovation.
they're like, no,
They're gonna name it the TPD sock allowance. The
yeah, like we could have some TPD lasts. That'd be fun.
yeah, that'd
So
be sick.
who knows? Um,
But
well, that's
anyway, that's what
fun.
I'm
Yeah,
stoked about. That's what I want to see next year is the Pegasus Premium. It would be stoked
it's next. Yeah, it's
to
next
get
year.
him in. Yeah, I think they're supposed to come out next year.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, they previewed them like it feels like forever ago.
they've been doing that lately. I think they're trying. Like, I don't know. This is the whole like Nike innovation question mark thing that everyone's been talking about. But it's like,
Right.
I wonder if they're like, hey, let's just show what we have so people think we're on it.
Gosh. They're like, yeah, stock is at a 5-year low. Got it. But we're still doing stuff over here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh man.
I mean, I
But you
think
gotta
just a
watch
couple of
out though.
years we'll see some really cool stuff.
Right. You gotta watch out, man. If you want to work for them, I'm sure Nike people are eventually gonna watch this. And
I'm sorry, swoosh lords.
yeah,
Hire
please
me, and I'll help you with the innovation stuff.
be
We'll get some cooler stuff than the Pegasus Premium getting out.
swoosh. Be kind to my friend Colin. Shine shine
Oh goddess,
contracts on him.
oh goddess Nike.
Yeah. Please. Reigneth footwear.
Footwear
Let
blessings
him have
upon all of us.
positions.
There you go.
Gosh. But yeah, like I think I'm excited. I don't know if I'm excited for that one. I just like
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, I'm more interested in the ones that actually like the ones that are looking like traditional running shoes. Like I get the bag
Hmm.
kind of contouring, but I'm like I feel like every time a bag comes into running, it's like
Yeah.
I don't know,
How
man.
is it really performing? That's
Yeah.
what I'm mostly interested to see how the interaction between all that squishy stuff is going to happen without it being unstable,
Yeah.
um, and how they're going to kind of push that as like a running shoe.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
I'm
Right.
just interested to see how what the ride is like.
Yeah. Well, sure we'll all get one on our feet and we'll have mixed
Amazed.
emotions. I feel like I always end up putting a Nike shoe on. Not all the time because I do like some of their basketball stuff, but I'll just be like, darn. Like, darn it. Like that was cool. Darn it. Like
Yeah.
but like I said, I have put on a couple of shoes recently that of theirs and I was like, crap. Like this is like especially especially the super stuff, the next percents and all those things, like
Oh yeah. Crushing it.
they're crazy. They're definitely when it comes to the competition, like comp
Yeah.
racing and moving, they got it. They're still there.
They
But
they invented the category, man. I mean, it makes sense they're on top. You know,
I I would hope
they kind
so.
of
They've
wrote
got a lot.
the recipe. You know, like
Yeah, they
carbon fiber plate, super critical foam. Like boom.
yeah, and they got the resources. So that's why I
Yeah.
always say, like, when people, like, when I work, like, at when I was at Brooks, even at Rad now, I'm like, hey guys, just don't poke the bear. Like, let them be over there and doing their thing.
Yeah.
Like, don't get in their face. Like, because they've
What I
got just unlimited resources. It's
yeah.
like you're not playing the same game they're playing.
What I love about the discourse that's happening right now is like it's this happened in like 2017 with like the Adidas thing, the boost craze. Like Adidas was like starting to surpass and like surpassed Nike, and then Nike was like, "Oh, bet, like
Yeah,
I'm just gonna destroy you," like
yeah,
you know, like, oh, I'm just gonna go Mamba mentality and like just
yeah,
crush it. So what I love about like all the discourse about the Nike innovation stuff, the stock being low, is like in like a year's time, it's gonna be. I know that it's gonna be a completely different beast.
yeah.
So
Yeah. It's like, just don't mess with it. That's yeah. It's gonna come around, and yeah, like you're right. Like I remember, um, Ultra Boost was just like kind of dominating,
yeah,
and then like as soon as they came out with that baby blue like next percent and like Kipchoge and all that stuff and like your three, what is it, 4%? Like
yeah,
three, like
yeah,
knocking like
the four
like
percent,
running
yeah.
economy and stuff like that. It was
Well,
like
then it was
Ultra
that,
was
and then
like
it was like Virgil Abloh, and we're bringing back
yeah,
the dunk, and we're
like,
it was like exactly,
like shut the door, and it was like
yeah,
dang. And now they're still trying to push the Ultra Boost, and I'm like,
well,
yeah,
yeah. When you in
I don't know,
people who run in them, they're too heavy.
yeah,
You know, they're like it's
well,
good, but it's heavy. And then they made like a light version, but I think the weight difference, like this last year, Adidas did
right,
the Ultra Boost and the Ultra Boost Light,
yeah,
and the Light is only like a couple grams lighter. And I remember, I think I watched the Believe in the Run review of it, and they're like, "Why not just make this the Ultra Boost, like the one that's just a couple grams lighter?" Like, I don't know why
yeah,
why you would do both,
yeah, yeah. I feel the
but
same. Like man, that's pretty funny. I like Believe in the Run. Like it was like one of those times where I feel like we had like mixed feelings about them at Brooks because I feel like it's not a secret that they kind of hate on them a little bit.
yeah,
Not a little
they hate
bit,
on
but
Brooks a
like
lot, actually. Yeah,
I was pleased to have two shoes that they liked, like
yeah, yeah,
Hyperion 1, Ghost Max 1. I was like
yeah. They love those.
cracked into the like into
We did
the
it.
Believe in the Run, cracked them a little bit, but and then we've come around since then.
Yeah,
The Hyperion Max 2 and the Glycerin Max, but the yeah, I was like yeah, and it was like from there it was like once that shoe came out and like the 4%, and it was like, oh well, like here comes Asics and here comes like
yeah, yeah.
and it was just like,
The
oh, here
market
comes
just
all
got
the,
better.
yeah,
Yeah,
like here comes all the running industry experts and like boom 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 boom, and it just felt like, I don't know, I just like we found out like, wait, the Ultra Boost isn't really that great of a running shoe, and then
mm-hmm.
they just never caught up, and you're like, okay. But
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of people, I mean, for whatever it's worth, like people wear those Ultra Boosts, like I still wear them, and I'm like, okay, like I see them, I saw them in the airport a bunch, and I was like,
dude. I feel like I still see the Air Max 270 all over the place, and I'm
oh
like,
yeah,
that
dude,
was just like a lifestyle thing, like 6 years ago. They're still making them, and people
they're
still love them.
that blew up. Yeah, and like I said, that was one of those ones where Nike just came around and was like, we're gonna be here. Like, what do you think? like
It's true.
we're not done because Kanye made a shoe, and Adidas, like Ultra Boost was selling in the mall, yeah, it just lit the fire, right? And so, anyway, I'm
100%.
sure Nike will be back. Let's not talk about Nike. Gosh, this is not it's not a Nike podcast. Even though majority of the footwear design positions are to my northwest. Yes,
Yeah. Yep.
to my northwest or west or something. Whatever. They're over there.
They're
All
in the
the way over
berm.
there.
They're
I'm
over
on the
there
other
in the
side.
berm.
Yeah. They're over there in Beaverton. I am not. So yeah, fun. Okay. Well, let's just talk about Colin's stuff. You watched both the episodes. Let's tackle Asia first and then the bio, so it's kind of in order.
For sure.
What do you got?
Yeah, dude, I wanted to talk to you about I noticed in your bio that you were a little under the weather. So I wanted to talk about, you know, traveling overseas, like what happens overseas, your body's breaking down, you kind of got like less sleep, but you're still trying to like perform top performance. You're eating new
Right.
food, experiencing new kind of like maybe gut
Yeah.
reactions. Like tell me
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
about that. How is that for travel there?
Well, I guess that's what I think that's the only thing I left out. Maybe probably not the only thing I left out, but it was like when you go to when you go there, like there's a whole and I didn't think about this because I was more focused on like relationship building and
Right.
what you're doing on the ground, but it's like it's a pretty big disruption to like your whole everything. Like sleep, it's gone. You're in like a whole different different climate, like
Yeah.
step out
100%.
of the airport in Vietnam and you're just like washed over with humidity that like I grew up in Virginia. We all know that now, but it's not the same. It's like kind of funny. It's like a I don't know how else to describe it, but like it's like humidity, but also like within the big city. Like I feel like there's something
Yeah.
with like the buildings and the humidity that's like you don't get it in the countryside of like Virginia with the humidity,
Yeah.
and
It's
it's
like
something.
almost
And then
there's like a vegetal humidity to the south, but like
yeah,
in a city like that, I just imagine it would be like smoggy and like
yeah,
like when we were in when I was in Detroit for Pencil, like it was a little bit like that. It was like muggy, but also like this kind of like city muggy. It was yeah.
yeah. It's like
I know what you're talking about.
sweaty. You're like
Yeah, yeah.
it's like constantly being in a locker room. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
but
With like the steam from the showers, and you're like, I'm trying to
yeah,
get out. I need to breathe.
yeah. You're like, yeah. You try to get out of it, but you can't get out of it. Um, Again, I say that lightly though, because you can live in it, obviously, because
Yeah, you can
millions of
adjust
people
for
do
sure.
every day. But
Yeah,
it's like when you come from the Pacific Northwest or even from California,
yeah,
where you're like used to like kind of this dry, even though here it's like kind of wet, but it's like a clean. It's like I wouldn't say clean, but it feels like a
it's like
purity.
crisp.
There's like
Yeah,
it's like the pine,
the
like
trees. It's
something's
all those the coniferous forests.
yeah. There's like something going on that it's just like feels refreshing a little bit.
Hmm.
I've always liked it. When we came up here, I didn't expect to like it, but I
Yeah,
do. Even when it rains, I like don't mind it. And I think you'll hear that from other people who are up here. It's like, yeah, it rains, but it's like kind of a cold rain that's like,
yeah.
it's like kind of
I
nice.
would I would agree. Like living in
Yeah.
Utah for 8+ years. It's like it's extremely dry in Utah, but I
Yeah.
never once felt like when I was in Oregon it was like muggy, like humid. Like I'm from Texas,
Yeah.
so like I'm used to like what a muggy, humid kind of like situation feels like.
Yeah.
And I never have once felt that in Oregon. And over the
Yeah.
last, 7 or 8 years, I've been visiting and staying there with friends and family. Um, but yeah, I mean, like moving from Utah to California, everybody here in Southern California says that like it's dry, but it's
Yeah.
like it is arguably, coming from Utah where it's like 8 to 9% humidity is like the height of where it gets, some days. And
Right.
here it's like 20, 30%. But
Mm.
anyway, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's
So
that
it's
kind of
like,
like that feeling. You're in a new place too. You're eating new
yeah.
foods,
And that's like
low
kind of
on sleep.
yeah, it's like you gotta readjust like timing wise. And I think that was okay because we did fly business, which was like game changer. I've never done that before. I was like, okay,
Yes, sir. This is
this
how
is
it's done.
good. Like because you have the option to like kind of just knock out, and you can actually knock out, not like
Right.
head bobbing like all the time like happens on a plane and all that weird
Right.
stuff. But then like the food, like it disrupts like everything because you're eating new food in a new
Mm-hmm.
place, different ingredients. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, and you eat a lot of rice, but I don't think it's this. It's the same but different. Like it's
Right.
coming from different places. It's all like, you eat a lot. Like I love the watermelon there. Like it's awesome. It's everywhere because
Yeah.
it's all the time. You can just like I have never bought one off the street, but like they're just all over the place.
Right. Right.
Um, so like there's all that, but then like how it's grown, where it's grown, like all these things I feel like just are like just mess things up, or like your
Right.
body's just a
It's just
different thing.
different.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's just
then
like your body's getting used to something different.
yeah, and then what's fun about it, not fun, is that then once you do that and you kind of adjust, you throw it all back off and come home. And you're like, and so
Then your body's like,
you're back,
what? I just got
you're
used
like,
to
yeah,
this.
your body's like, well, that was fun. And then like, so you're trying to readjust, and then, but you're in the States now, and like, it's, I don't know, it never goes super easy. There's always like, so like I kind of, man, I built a thick skin because I was at Brooks. I was like never wanting to go. Like,
Right.
I was like, oh man, I don't want to do this. But I think part of that was, again, like not being business travel. And then
Mm-hmm.
like, I think my only experience was like, because like at Brooks, we had like vendor dinners like every night. Like we were with people
Yeah.
like every single night. And so you barely had any like time to yourself.
Yeah.
And
To
like,
recoup.
yeah. And like, so you were just like exhausted every night. You came in exhausted. But like when we went this last time, with Rad, we had like designated, like, don't talk to us time.
That's
And
good.
I didn't know how to deal with it, cause I never had that on an Asia trip. And so
Yeah.
I was like, what? Like, I was like, oh, I'm kind of bored. I feel alone. Like, what is going on? But man, like looking back now, I'm like, oh, that was actually pretty nice. Like, and they were pretty much like radio silent. Like, I tried to hit people up and be like, let's go. Do you guys want to go out here for dinner? And everyone's like, no. Like, I was like,
I'm out.
okay, see ya later.
Oh,
Like the
man.
weekend, like I thought I was gonna hang out with everybody, and like, nope, there was no hanging out. Like Saturday, I think Saturday is when I shot the podcast, and I was like, there's just no, it was dead. No one wanted to
Yeah.
talk.
It's interesting. That's an
I was like,
interesting like thing to
okay,
talk about, like the free time that you have on work trips, because you're working
yeah,
like more hours than you would a normal day. In
yep,
in I would say most cases, right? Like you're going to the factory, you probably have like really quick breakfast with everybody, and then you go to the factory. You're there like at the factory the whole day. Maybe you do a break for lunch,
yep,
and then you come back and samples are made, and now you're like reviewing
yeah,
whatever,
yep,
um, talking with people to get things changed over, right? And then they're getting everything kind of written down, all the notes ready, working things out so that the next morning, you can hit and look at the new sample from your feedback. Um,
yeah.
maybe
I'd
not,
say put put a day put a day in between. Like building. Like
right,
building the next, like, because it takes a bit to like build a thing, but
right.
yeah, that's
But it's
essentially like
it's
how it
much
goes.
faster like than the back and forth that happens,
Yeah, yeah,
across like timelines, and so it's
yeah,
like, but it is interesting because like there is downtime.
yeah.
and you know, I when I worked at Purple and we did travel at Purple, there were definitely people that were like always wanting to hang out. And
Right.
I definitely am like a person who likes to like protect his time a little bit. And I had this mentality at Purple where it was like everybody is a professional work colleague, and there are only a few of these people that are actually my friends. And
Yeah.
so like I am not obligated to spend time with them because as a professional work colleague, they are work. They are not like a respite from work. They are
Oh
employees of a
yeah.
business that I work with. And so
Yep.
like I went on this week long trip to Ukraine. This is before all like the, you know, civil unrest, everything going on.
Right.
And, you know, when we were there, we were gonna, it was like we got there like on a Sunday night, and we were there the entire week. And then we were gonna leave the following like Monday or Tuesday. And the factory had arranged like this whole trip and tour of this one part of Ukraine on the weekend because the factory was going to be closed anyway. And
Right.
so they were going to put everybody up in a hotel and give them a tour of all this stuff. And all my coworkers went, and I was like, no, I'm going to stay here. So like I stayed back and I like watched episodes of Seinfeld on Netflix
Yep.
and just kind of like recouped because it's like when people are work or work colleagues and it's like a business relationship, like I can't let my guard down. I can't, you know, do whatever. So I think it takes like a special person. Like there are people like, for example, like our mutual friend Wade.
Yep.
You know, he was my senior industrial designer for a while, and then my really good friend Da, who is also one of my senior industrial designers. Like when we went on work trips, there was one time where we rented a house together instead of getting a hotel, and we like hung out after we did our work stuff and got dinner and like watched a
Yeah.
movie, you know, at the
Yeah.
at the house, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
with um, but I wouldn't do that with other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is a very real thing having some free time, but also being in a foreign country to you,
Yep.
um, and then not having the support system there. Like on the weekend, that Saturday, all you're doing is shooting a like shooting a podcast in your hotel. It was probably like, what am I going to go explore this city by myself? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
That was
that's
like,
difficult.
yeah, it was, it got to the point where I was like in there, I'm sitting there for most of the day and I'm uh, like, I got to get out of this place. Like, I got to go out. And I'm like, I don't really know where to go, but I got to go. And I was like, I'm just going to wait till dinner time and like then get out. And it was pretty good because I like felt like I was braving the city a little bit. Like,
Yeah,
and I think this trip was better because it really painted the picture of Ho Chi Minh City better than I'd ever gotten at Brooks. Because again,
yeah,
like we had all these dinners. We went out a couple times at night. So like all I'm remembering is like I'm walking these streets I don't know, and I'm like 20 because the times that I went was before the pandemic, so I went like
right.
twice before then, and
Yeah,
so I'm like, you know, all I have memories of in that time was just like these dark streets with a bunch of motorcycles driving around, and I'm like, where am I? And I'm like scared to death because I'm like, where's the food situation like? Like, am I gonna live through this? You
I
know,
went from Virginia to Ho Chi Minh City. What's going
yeah, I'm
on?
like, where, like, is this okay? And so, like, I spent like the first 3 days, like, and I never like had gone overseas before.
Yeah,
And so a little bit, I was like excited to be on the plane, like flying and like the big plane and going across the ocean and all that stuff. And I thought that was cool. But like when my body had to do all the stuff that it had never done before, I had big
yeah,
time anxiety and all this junk. And so like pepper
yeah,
that into like my first time. I don't know what I'm doing. Don't know where I'm at. Trying to do this shoe stuff. Like the first few days were miserable. And I
yeah,
was like, okay. But then I caught my stride and everything was fine. But like, I just remember having that experience and then being really tired on the back end, like flying back because, you know, I didn't sleep, of course, or I tried to. And it was like, I was sitting in the cheap seats because
right,
that was like a long time ago. And
right.
anyway, so it was like, yeah, it was rough. And so my I only had with Brooks, I only had one first class experience,
Hmm.
and that was because we went to Australia on like color material thing, and I was on the innovation side with color material at that point.
Very
And so we
cool.
went to Australia, and we've all flew Virgin Atlantic or whatever. Like, and their premium economy is like our first class. And
Right.
I was like, man, like people travel like this? Like this is crazy. But on that
This is how
plane
the
was
other
like,
half lives.
but like upstairs on that same plane was like people sleeping in like king size beds. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, got it. This is still not that cool.
It's just still not that cool. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
hear that.
But
I hear that
anyway,
for sure.
so it was just like these horror stories. But yeah, I get it. Like it was just different because like I was going with Brooks. It was like we hang out every night. No one's alone,
Yeah.
and that's And on the weekends we have a work trip, and we all have to go on it. And you're like, oh my gosh, like. And then contrast to like basically people turning their phones off like at like 5. I'm like, what am
Well, I
I
mean,
doing? Like, I'm
what's
like, I guess
interesting.
I'll go eat by myself tonight. Like, they're like, hey guys, I'm going out. They're like, no, see you in the morning. You're like, oh, okay, got it. And but
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah,
good for me because I got to see the city. I got to, I think there's something where you look at your phone and have to like decipher maps and figure out
yeah,
all that
and
stuff.
navigate
And
yourself.
yeah, and then you like kind of like break it down. You're like, okay, like I know this street, and I can, it started to become more familiar, and
Yeah.
which is great.
Well, and
And
you're usually there for like
yeah,
these work trips are you're trying to knock out as much as possible because like it's expensive to get everybody over there. So
yeah,
usually you're
Te-
there for at least a week,
it's
if
10 to
not.
14 days
Yeah,
with
yeah,
with shoes. So it's
yeah.
like I was lucky I got the 10-day thing, but I think next time I'll probably be in at a 14-day.
Right.
Just because I didn't have a lot of projects going on, but I did, but I didn't. Like it's just kind of
Hmm.
peppered in. Um, but yeah, so who knows? But yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I don't know if I feel 100% yet, but also I'm just hungry right now, and like talking into this microphone gets me that way. But
You're burning
whatever.
calories. You're burning
Yeah,
calories
for
by
sure.
yapping. We need to re up. Got to get
Yeah.
your calories in.
All right, Colin. Next, jump on the next one. Unless you had, I mean, I don't want to talk. I don't know. We can cover more Asia stuff later, but
Okay.
I think that was pretty funny. I didn't expect to talk about colleagues.
Yeah,
It was
that was
funny.
me.
And sometimes you spend too much time, and I get it. Like I don't know if I want to be around me, but I feel like I'm fun, but it was clear that it was like, no, like we're done with you.
No, I don't necessarily think it's you because what I find interesting too is I met a couple of your coworkers
Yeah.
at the material show, and I
Yeah.
get the vibe that like most everybody has worked in the industry for like a good while,
Yep.
and it may be that like I think part of the reason why you like Rad right now is because you're like kind of given a little bit of freedom for it to be kind of like what you make it in a
Yep.
way. And some people, I would say especially developers, when like developers on a work trip, like a work trip, it's like the hardest thing, like one of the hardest things.
Yep.
Because you're managing like not only your teammates but also kind of the expectations of the factory and like all this other stuff, right? And so I could imagine that it's like people are finally like excited to have the leeway to say like, okay, I'm not talking to anybody, I'm gonna have my own time, like I'm gonna go back to the hotel and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's like a good thing. I think it's a good thing,
Yeah.
but I'm sure you
And
can
they're all
you
seasoned.
can make a few friends in Rad that will let you hang out.
Yeah. They're all seasoned footwear people. Like we all are. We're all
Yeah.
like been around for a while. So it's like, yeah, see you later. And I was like, oh, okay. Like,
You'll be
fine.
around. You'll be here tomorrow morning.
Yeah. They're like, no. See ya. They're like, okay. But it's just new territory. So I get it now. And now I'll be more prepared for next time, which will be good because
Yeah.
who doesn't like free time? I mean, love it. All right, let's get to the other one so we can round this out. Man, we've already talked for a while, so
Yeah.
we might
Yeah.
inch over. We might inch over the hour mark today, but we will just do it because this is fun. We're doing. We're
This is
just
fun.
talking. It's good.
We're just talking. Well, so I wanted to
Yeah.
say, like, I think for the viewers out there, like, Jake and I have been texting on and off. We've met a few times, but we've been texting on and off for about like a year and a half, year now. And I would consider us pretty good friends. We text like on the daily.
Yep.
But, I don't really like know Jake on like a super extremely personal level. And so like getting to hear his bio was super cool. And it kind of gave me like all this really like important, valuable context as to how he sees design and, his kind of path towards design.
Yeah.
Um, and I think something we mentioned in our previous episode where we were talking about networking was that I appreciate that you can kind of look at a product, whether it's footwear or something else, but mostly footwear, and you can kind of boil it down to like purely the aesthetic parts and what went into the story. Whether it's lines or textures or colors or shape or silhouette, and how they relate to kind of this a more creative concept.
Right.
And my background, initially I got into this because I thought I was going to be a developer. Um, and that's kind of like what I was gunning for. And I was like a How It's Made kid. Watched How It's Made all the time. And
Right.
so like understanding why things work and how they interact is just part of my thought process and part of my background. My dad's an engineer. And so I kind of always had that way of thinking as a kid growing up. And I've been applying it to design in a way. But I just thought it was super cool that you have this fine art background that kind of follows you through childhood all the way, into your career and kind of gives you this added perspective
Mm.
to be able to look at things aesthetically. Um, and not to say that you're not looking at function or innovation or those things because you've also worked in those sectors as well. But you
Right.
just have like indifference to me, this ability to really focus in on it. Like when I'm sketching and I'm making shoes, I'm like less worried about what the lines look like and more like how they're communicating what the function is going to do.
Right.
Um, and something that's interesting that you had texted me one point was like, what we were talking about shoes, and you said, I make objects of desire.
Mm.
And you're like, hopefully, if I'm doing my job right, I'm making something um, that strikes an emotion with you. And it kind of
Right.
like reset my thinking in a way um, to where now I can like hold both truths independently.
Yeah.
Um, but that was like a really fundamental sort of like thought shift I had from like your way of thinking. Um,
Right. Yeah.
and so now I look at things like, because maybe this is maybe we're not like getting into like what we want to talk about, but this is like kind of what I wanted to say was um, when we talk about like sustainability or
Mm-hmm.
products that have like a long shelf life,
Yeah.
for the most part, like the products that have a strong emotional connection are the products that last the longest because you keep them around the longest. So
Interesting.
like think of your dad's leather baseball glove, your
Yeah.
your grandpa's, your grandpa's switchblade, whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
those things
Yeah.
that have a deep emotional connection become durable goods because of the emotional connection they have, and not
Right.
necessarily because the performance they do or the way that they work or the functionality of them. It's more about
Yeah.
the emotion and the story. And what footwear design has been able to do is like take other people's stories that's not your grandpa or your grandma or your dad, people like Michael Jordan or
Yep.
Kyrie Irving, and you are so connected with this person, you're like, you would never get rid of this shoe because
Yeah.
you knew that this design element or this or that is part of that story, and you're now part of the story because you know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. I like, because I think I probably need more of your line of thinking sometimes. 'Cause I think people ask me like, "Oh, well, how's this part made? How's this thing made?" And I'm like, I don't know if that's part of my job. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's what I don't know if I'm supposed to answer that.
yeah.
Like developer will come up and be like, "That's translucent. Is it supposed to be translucent? Like, is it translucent on the page?" like,
I don't know. You
they're
tell
like,
me.
"Yeah," and I'm like, "I think it's supposed to be translucent." Then,
There you go.
like it's like
Yeah,
it's
I
on a
think I
drawing.
think I
Yeah,
think it's a good balance, and I think that's what I appreciate. Not saying like we're two different sides of the same coin, but like it sort of feels that way. Like learning from your background, um,
yeah,
and being like, oh, okay, like I have this sort of engineering developer brain, and it
yeah,
kind of gets in the way of this like other kind of more creative part of my
yeah,
brain sometimes. And so like finding that balance is really tricky and difficult. And I appreciate that you can strike the balance.
yeah,
And the balance is like something you've always had because
yeah.
it's just like from when you grow up.
Yeah,
So
that's true. Like man, I keep thinking about when this subject comes up, I think about my boy Jesus at Brooks. Like he would always tell me, and I think this came from Dwayne too, because he's a pencil guy, Jesus, and he would just be like, "No, you need to know how it does its thing. Like, you need to know why that shoe is doing its thing. Like,
yeah,
because like you need to be able to talk about it, and you need to be able to tell like the story of why the shoe is doing its thing. Like,
yeah.
and I was like, okay, 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 and I never did it. Like, and I was like, no, I'm good. Like, but
But pencil is very function driven.
yeah,
I felt
yeah,
like while I was there, it like really played to my strengths to be like, this is like this because it functions like this, and because I looked at a medical research document that said women's feet are like this. Like, but at the
right,
same time, I felt like when I look at my shoe, I'm like, what was the story behind these lines? Kind of analyzing it the same way
right,
you would, and I'm like, I don't know if I had one. I was like really focused on how it worked, and so I think there needs to be a balance, right? If things are going to have an
right.
emotional connection for people, like it can't just be all function. Otherwise, like engineers would rule the world.
Yeah, right. We used to. Oh man, this goes back to some of that origin story too. Is man, we had professors at BYU. They'd pick up like something. Wish I could. I don't have anything around me. Ah, you know what? Like this box back here.
Yeah.
Ironically, I can't. I don't know if I can turn the camera, but just like they would just like look at stuff and be like, they hold it up in front of us and be like, "Did an engineer do this, or did a designer do this?" And you'd be like, probably an engineer. Like it would be like a squirt bottle for like expo marker, like
Right. Right.
whiteboard stuff, and you'd be like, yeah, okay, like I get it. Like a engineer probably did the trigger for this random
Right.
Dollar Tree spray bottle. Like,
Yeah.
like okay, cool. And they would just like hold it up, like, and they would do stuff like that, like purely function versus like, some spray bottle that had form, or like, did you see in the grocery store that would be like, you know, not a reason to buy, but like, oh, like this bottle's kind of unique. Like they'd always talk about like the method bottles, like when that came out, like
Oh yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
remember one of the big designers, like New York designers, I think, did some of the method spray bottles and stuff. And you're like soap bottles, and you're like, okay, so they applied like cool materials and finishes, and like you can see the engineering part, but it's like within this thing.
Right.
And so it's kind of cool, but it's kind of like you're saying, like even on this shoe, like I was thinking about it, like I put the waves back here
Yeah.
because like if you watch running, like we would always watch like these slow motion like heel strikes and stuff at
Mm-hmm.
Brooks, and like when you hit the ground, like all of the chaos from like your touching down on the ground happened like right there, and you would like see the muscles wobble and do all their thing,
No
and
way.
then you would like go into like the smooth toe off, right? Like where you activate. And so
Yeah.
like that's the story, right? Like that's it.
Dude,
Like,
see, and that's like, man, that's like, I would have looked at that and been like, oh, is it like 3 mountain peaks? And like, no, that's such a
yeah,
good story. Like, now I'm going to go buy a pair of Ghost Max 2s. Like,
just wobbly. And then like we would always tell stability on the right side, so we try to communicate like nothing. Like
right,
stability was almost like our like there's nothing on this side. It's
right,
all release on the lateral or whatever.
right.
Um but anyway, so that was it. Like I stacked them back there, and it was like the energy of the run starts boom, like right there on the heel strike. Um
Nice.
I don't know. Is it cool? Who knows? It's probably okay. It sells them on it, but a lot of
But I mean,
stuff on this shoot I don't
this
like.
just,
So
this just kind of peels back the curtain a bit to see and show like how difficult it really is to like do everything, to have everything together, um
mm,
like the functionality, but also the story, but
yeah,
also the emotion, but also the, the manufacturability, and
yeah,
also, it's, I've been feeling this a lot lately too. I've been watching like I've been watching like just the highlight reels of the preseason games that are happening,
yep,
and like I'm seeing these crazy plays happen, and like I can barely figure out what's happening when I'm staring at something by myself, but these people, these athletes, are like fast twitch, like
yeah,
they're just, they know where every bone in their body is in space at any given time, and they know exactly like the minusculest of movements to do, to be in the right zone, to set themselves up to do exactly what they need to do to make the play, or and then they
yep,
can read other people too. So like there's
yeah.
this art, but also this engineering to being an athlete. And I think like it's just ringing true here for design as well. It's like there are these things that you don't see, that you don't understand, that are very difficult to get right.
It's the more I'm in footwear, the more I'm like every shoe is like complexity. Like it's not just, you can't like just draw a shoe. Like every bit is a bit, and like every part is like, okay, well I'm gonna do an upper, but then I gotta do a tongue. But how's the tongue stitched on? But how's the
Right.
eye row put on? Is there release in there? Like, and then you're like, okay, and then I've got an outsole or a midsole, and like, how does it shape, and what facets, and like, can I pull the rubber this way? And then you get on the bottom, and you're like, what are the legs doing? And is there grooves? And then it's not. And it's like you've got this whole line of decisions that you have to make, like stretched over, and you're like, sometimes you get into it, and you're like, you'll be like, why did I make that decision? Over here, and then you think about how affects this thing over there, and then like the good people, like I would say, like now that I'm working with Tom, is like the good people can like look at it and like be like kind of step out of it and be like, okay, but you need to do this so it all becomes like, so it all comes full circle, like you're like,
Right. Right.
oh, like man, that's what I was missing, like um and so yeah, it's like the more I'm in it, the more I'm like I left a shoe at Brooks, like I was mid season when I left, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, one of the shoes I left, I was kind of joking on my way out with the guys. I'm like, good luck with, because like they were signing my shoes like as I'm leaving, like they're like they're like telling me like no, he's gonna get this shoe, and like, hey, guess what, Jake's leaving, so you're gonna get this shoe. And that's like the kind of relationship I had with like them. Like
Yeah.
I love those guys, and so like even my manager, like we had been with each other for like the whole time, and he's like, guess what, he's
I'm gonna
leaving,
take this.
so you're gonna get Jake's shoe. Like, hope you have enough. You don't have enough on your plate. Here's another one. And one of the shoes I left behind, I was like, good luck with that. I was like, I just left you multivariable calculus on that thing, man. Like, good luck on that, dude. Like,
Right.
because I really put like, if I'd say like a lot of people, like sometimes I can get pretty chaotic. Like I can get like above and beyond like regular like design. Like sometimes I can get too much. I can layer on like 50,000 stories, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it can get just really muddy. And on
Yeah.
that one, I had like, it was like I was alive. Like it was a trail shoe, and I was like, I'm just gonna blah blah blah, like story, 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 and like no one was stopping me, and so I was just like, yeah, 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 and this and this and this. I'll probably hold it up on the pod one day, just because I have a couple of the first round samples. I was just like,
Nice.
and like it was just like, I mean, it looked cool. I thought it looked cool, but it was like, it was a lot. It was a lot to take
Yeah.
in. You'd see it and
Yeah.
you'd be like, chaos. This is chaos. What are you doing? And I'd be like, yeah, it is chaos. It's the trail. Like, that's what you do on the trail. You have chaos. And anyway,
I love
yeah,
that.
so it's just fun. But yeah, when I was leaving that, it was like, okay, leaving a legacy. Um, anyway, so yeah, any other bio stuff? I'm like, man, you're not even bringing up good old little Lauryl.
Dude,
Like I can.
Laurel's the goat. She just kind of like hit you against the head. I was like, are you even thinking straight? I love those
Dude,
moments. Those are great moments.
the thing about that moment that I didn't talk about that I wanted to, and I don't, you know what? Like, what's funny about this podcast, in all podcasts, is by this point everyone's gone. So, except for you, Colin. So
I'm here.
so the thing about that one that was so cool is like I remember coming into that class, and maybe even like that whole week, like I got accepted to industrial design and BYU. You know, they come at the same time.
Right.
So I'm sitting down, like, and I'm like sulking. Like I come in and I'm literally like, we're having this conversation, and she tells me this while I'm sitting kind of like,
I just got in.
I don't want to work on, like, you would thought like there was a death in the family. Like you would have
Right.
thought like, but no, like probably one of the greatest things was happening. And
Right.
I'm sitting there like a nervous wreck, like, I don't know what I want to do. Like,
Yeah.
man, I don't know. Like, I got into this university and I got into this program. It's pretty good. I don't know how good it is, but you would have thought like nothing. I don't know. It was. I look back on it. I sometimes wonder if I'm looking at myself like in real
Yeah.
time, like if there's like string theory, like Interstellar, and I'm like, wonder if I'm just like looking at myself like, what in the world is going on? Like,
You're
no,
banging on
like,
the window. No.
yeah, I'm like, do the thing.
That's
But
so
like
funny.
but it was crazy. Like I was like literally like sulking and like I don't know, but I'm leaving all my family and my friends and blah blah.
Dude,
And she was like,
there,
nope.
yeah, you're going. There are
Yeah.
moments in, I think, everybody's lives where you're met with like it's like the hero's journey. You're like met with the call to action, and then you refuse, and then you kind of like have a realization. Like when I got into Pencil, like I was like in contact with you while I was applying to Pencil,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to get a submission in. That was like my goal. My goal was to like
Mm-hmm.
have an idea and a marker rendering good enough that I felt good about just sending it. And
Yeah.
just sending it was good enough for me. Because you had kind of like tempered my expectations. You were like, I don't know if you're going to get in first try. Like, I don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's okay. Like, I just want to prove to myself that I could make a concept in this given time frame and submit it, and that's going to be good enough for me. And then I got accepted.
Yeah.
So I had not really thought about all the work that I was going to have to do to like make sure that I could go to Detroit for 5 weeks. Like I was like, how do I ask off of work? I gotta like make sure like my wife is working, like my who's gonna babysit the dog, like who's gonna dog sit the dog. Like
Yep.
how
Yep.
how am I getting there? How can I afford, like if they make me take a leave of absence, like how am I gonna afford rent? And
Mm.
so there's this moment where I'm like, maybe I won't go. I'll just not accept it or whatever.
Right.
And then I had a conversation with again, one of my senior designers, a really good friend of mine that I worked with at Purple DA, and I told him about it, and he was like, "Are you stupid? like like all that other stuff you'll figure out, like in the grand scheme, what's going to affect your life more, the fact that you had to like figure out how to do this thing, or the fact that you went to pencil."
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of hard work, but I ended up getting there and I did it. And there were times where I thought I was just going to like drop out and go home or have a panic attack and,
Yeah.
die because it's stressful.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are those moments in your life. And I think becoming an adult and getting older is realizing that when life gives you those moments, you have to run towards them,
Yeah.
not away from them.
Oh. Yep. And
it sucks. You have to force you to grow. It forces you to grow, and and it sucks, and it's uncomfortable, and it's work.
Yeah.
But
that was just the whole process of saying like literally like clicking through all the stuff, like, because like I remember like the contract. I'm in my basement trying to fill out a contract to live at the complex. And I'm sight unseen. Like I'm just going out. Like,
I just have to say yes to get there.
I'm like, okay. And so I remember the contract being so long online. I'm like, why is it asking me all this stuff? Like, and I'm like committing to this. I'm like, what is this? Like money's going. I'm like, okay. Like, I remember like just being done with that and being like, what did I just do? Did I just do that? Like, and it's all history now, but it's like I vividly remember just being like shaking and like not like being like, is this a good thing? Did I just feel like everything in my brain was telling me don't do this, and I was like, I'm doing it anyway. Like,
what's funny about you saying that is like I'm sure there was so many voices in your head telling you not to do it, but there was one like chest feeling that was like, no, just keep going. just keep doing it.
Yeah, I would like to say that there was. I really feel like I had zero things saying do this. It was,
man, you were fighting some demons, man.
Yeah. Well, you said we were talking about it earlier when you said like that largely like I do and I would say also that I think my wife would agree with you that I tend to like one channel, like, and I've tried to get better at this over the years. I think I'm getting better at it in footwear, because it channels over, it goes over to design as well. I don't think there's a lot of things that just kind of like bleed over. And then I think when I was just like, look, it's this or nothing. Like, literally, like I was like, I'm only going to BYU for industrial design. There is no backup plan. They always say that. They're like, have a backup plan. And I'm like, well, what could it possibly be? Like, and now that I'm like, what's nice is now like I have kids and I can teach them that there is another path. Like if you don't get into something, like, because I didn't know, like no one told me like, oh, well, you can just, why don't you go into home building or like,
right.
Like, and I think I probably would have been like, oh yeah, like, wow, I think flipping houses would be fun, because I think that now, but like, in the moment it was like design or bust, like,
right.
And luckily it was a hit, because I don't know what would have happened had I not made that program, because some people like applied like 2, 3, 4 times. And I'm like,
I mean,
I don't know.
I know plenty of people who, because something you sort of kind of touched on, but at BYU you have to apply to get into the pre-program, and then you have to apply to get into the professional program. And if you don't get into the professional program, then like you don't graduate with an industrial design degree. Like you don't.
You can't sign up for the classes. Like you cannot, you are not allowed. You are not in the system. You can't audit them. You can't sit in.
And trust me, like I ended up weaseling my way into a few of them. I did. But it was
Nice.
after much persistence and emailing, and because basically I got told like either you're dropping your comms degree that you have one semester left to finish
Yep.
and trying to get in, and then signing up for another 3 years of school on top of the 5 you just did. Um,
Right.
or you could just graduate in comms. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to add as many industrial design courses as I am humanly able to. And I will
Right.
get into any one of the courses that will let me in.
Yeah.
So I got into a
Yeah.
couple of the pre-professional courses.
Nice.
So, and that's where I
Yeah.
met Aaron.
Nice.
And through there I met Dan, and
Yep.
here we are, dude. Now I'm with you. It all comes full circle, man.
It's that our group was cool.
Oh yeah.
Dan and Aaron, they made a lot of inroads, and then, um, I don't know that anyone else is really doing all that much, but Dan and Aaron are pretty vocal. Like,
You got to have Aaron on for sure. I would love to hear about what he's doing for Belroy.
yeah,
Because
for sure.
after my semester, he taught that class. He taught a class at BYU that I took from him. It was like right after that semester, he got the job at Belroy. They let him go remote, like from Utah for a little bit, and then he moved. And now
Yeah.
the dude is surfing on the Gold Coast, man.
Yeah. Oh, well, all right. We've ate it up.
Yep.
Hour and 5. So I think that might be
I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. It's all good.
I don't know.
We talked about a lot.
Speak anymore, but yeah, I think I just kept telling. I think I was telling you a lot too. Is like the bio. I just want to get out there into the world and just let it be what it is.
Yeah.
And then hopefully in some way I'll start advertising that I have a podcast. I think your advertising is probably the best advertising that we've gotten. So we'll try to kick that up a little bit. If I'm with Dan, we'll probably get it. We'll probably get it a little. It'll get a little hotter as we so we get more people on.
Yeah, Dan's got a lot of followers, man.
Yeah, it's gosh, that's one of those things where like I try not to be jealous. But it's like, man, I really thought I had like that nice footwear corner in Instagram. I was like, and then like Gravity Sketch came out and people started making 3D stuff, and I was like, crud. I don't have time to learn this. And anyway, but yeah, Dan's great. So we'll have Dan, which is very exciting. And then got my friend Brian, who's going to come on. I think he might be next. And my friend Brian, he's a UX UI guy, so that'll be fun.
Ooh.
Like he's kind of interesting. He's the one thing I want to talk to him about is he is like incredible at starting something and finishing. Like he's written like books. Like he has his own like fantasy novel thing that he does. He's got like
very cool.
He writes plays. He has 2 bands. Like he just like does
That's
it all.
sick.
Like he also has a family. So he's like, and I don't know. He's probably late 40s. He just does it all. Like
Dude.
He never stops. Like, and he has an idea and he just runs with it. And it's like, I got to know how he does what he does, because there's something there that I think we can all benefit from. And then of course, Dan, I just want to ask where he gets his creativity and his aesthetic, I think, is just so different from mine.
Oh yeah.
That I've always like, even just watching him in the program and the design program, just watching him, I'm like, dude, I don't even know if I could copy you. Like I couldn't try to, I can't be you.
He's very precise.
Yeah, that's it. Like there's like something there that like I can't do it. It's his own thing. I think Aaron's got his own thing too. Mm-hmm. And then like, I don't know what my thing is, but it's like, I feel like if there was anyone that you could copy like Aaron and I could be copied. Dan's like his own like little, he's like in his own little world.
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, definitely interesting to have him come on and hear his story, and maybe he'll talk about whatever he's doing now. But anyway, so that's the show. Yeah, that's all I got on the paper. It literally says, Caulin, talk about stuff.
We did it.
And
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll have Caulin back. Usually it's probably going to go like 2 episodes and then Caulin. 2 episodes, then Caulin's back. Maybe more. Who knows? He's great. I love this conversation. Anyway, always get us more subscribers, and you'll see more. Hopefully I will start advertising. I have an Instagram. It's TechPackers. Like at TechPackers. It's
how much you pay for that
there's
one?
A couple. I took a couple domain names just in case. So don't follow those. Follow TechPackers. It's in my bio on Instagram, and hopefully we'll start posting little shorts. And I've recorded a bunch of little like advice sessions. It's like, hey, do this. Hey, do that. But haven't posted any of those yet. TBD. I'm trying to figure out how to get graphic and like, you know how like cool Instagram things happen. Don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So
I dig that.
I got to look it up. There's always a YouTube about it. So anyway, thanks to Caulin. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
And we will talk to you next time.
Peace, guys.
Bye.